Thank you, Joseph. It's good to have you back with us today. And also, it's good to have Ed Brauer back with us. We're happy to have Joseph and Ed back with us today. Good morning. Welcome to All Faiths Unitarian Congregation Sunday Service. My name is Joyce Ramay, and I'll be your worship associate today. And our speaker today is our member, Dr. Lewis Robinson. Today is the second Sunday of our program on the Unitarian Universalist principles. The second principle is justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Here at All Faiths, you will find a diverse and inclusive spiritual community where we welcome people with many beliefs. You can bring your whole self, your full identity, your questioning mind, and your expansive heart. At All Faiths, we have more than one way of experiencing the world and understanding the sacred. No matter who you are, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, and no matter whom you love, you are truly welcome here. Today, we will be sharing the plate with Operation Joy. Since we are not present here in the sanctuary, we invite you to mail in your checks and write Operation Joy on the lower left corner if you wish your donation to go for that purpose. This is something we do every August so that we provide supplies for the children for our school teachers. Our speaker today is Dr. Reverend, not Reverend, but is revered by me, Dr. Lewis Robinson. And he said he's 81 years, and I'd like to say he's 81 years young. I wish I was in good shape as he is. Lewis was born in South Carolina, and then they moved to New York. He kind of moved back and forth. He served in the United States Marines. He's a graduate of Howard University, MD graduate at SUNY, Upstate Medical Center of Syracuse. He had his residency in family practice and St. Joseph's Hospital, Syracuse. He practiced medicine for 25 years there and retired in 2001 as physician emeritus. He spent 6 months practicing medicine in Southland, New Zealand, and he's a volunteer physician senior friendship for 4 years here in Fort Myers. In Syracuse, he was a past president of the County Medical Society and served on many boards and major committees. He's also a marathon runner. He has one son, Darrell Robinson, who lives in Boston. When he retired, he moved to Fort Myers in 2001, but I'd hardly say he's retired. Here are just a few things that he's engaged with. He's a member here at All Faiths. He's a board member of the McGregor Clinic. He's a member of our All Faiths social justice teams, particularly racial justice and climate action. He's a member of Standing Up for Racial Justice. He's a supporter of Lee Interfaith for Empowerment and engages in a lot of private activism. He was part of the Occupy movement in 2009-2010, which is an international progressive socio-political movement that expresses opposition to social and economic inequality and the lack of real democracy around the world. And he is a founder of Dunbar Community Forum Foundation. That's a program that supports children and families living in underserved areas. To me, he embodies the attributes of the principle that he will be addressing today. So I can hardly say that he's retired. He's just not getting paid. And now, I'd like to invite you all to join together in singing our wonderful hymn, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. Please join in reciting our words for lighting the chalice, which are printed in the order of service that Regina emailed to you. Let us remember that all the darkness in the world cannot snuff out the light of one little candle. Help us to keep lighting our little candles until a mighty torch of justice sweeps our nation and our world. At this time, we share some of our joys and sorrows. Among our joys are the fact that Jan Gardiano and David Howenstein left the hospital this week, and both have returned to skilled nursing facilities at their retirement homes. Sad news is that Susan Meissner lost her beloved dog Jack, who was 15 years old, and Mahalena Dion's lost her dog Poopy, who was her only family. And Jeannie Ezel's sister, who lives in Pensacola, is suffering from COVID-19. So please keep them all in your thoughts and prayers. I'd like to ask everyone to close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let us turn our minds and our hearts to justice, equity, and compassion. Our opening words today are by Mary Ann Cotter. Welcome to this place of possibility. This is love's hearth, the home of hope, a refuge for minds in search of truth unfolding, ever beautiful and ever strange. Here, compassion is our shelter. Freedom, our protection from the storms of bigotry and hate. In this place, may we find comfort and courage. Here, may our sight become vision, to see the unseen, to glimpse the good that is to be. And now, Joseph, hold my hand.
Found a picture in my basement, a face 100 years ago. But I don't want to do like he did, so full of pride and all alone. Escape is in my blood, fear is in my bones, but I don't wanna walk that road. Please help me, hold my hand. I can hear the ghosts calling, help me stand, even if the sky is falling. And I want you to know I can't do it alone. Hold my hand. This is the burden that I carry, and it goes back 100 years. But all that I did, I've done with it. You've got every right to leave, but stay with me. Hold my hand. I can hear the ghosts calling, help me stand, even if the sky is falling. And I want you to know I can't do it alone. Hold my hand. 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 You're the reason why we can write a different story. Lift me up, I'm falling on my knees again. Hold my hand. I can feel the ghosts calling, help me stand. falling. I want you to know I can't do it alone. Hold my hand. Hold my hand. Help me stand. Even when the sky is falling, hold my hand. Help me stand.
Thank you, Joseph, and I'm looking forward to the day when I can actually hold your hand again, and some hugs too. Today our responsive reading is by Becky Edmiston. Some people say that Jesus is the light of the world. We all can be the light of the world if we seek to act in ways that enlarge the realms of love and justice. After each statement that I make, please recite, "We are the world, light of the world." Excuse me. When we share another's pain or offer a comforting ear to a friend in need, we are the light of the world. When we give bread to the hungry or support ways to house the homeless, we are the light of the world. When we fight temptations to wrongdoings within ourselves and treat our neighbors with respect, we are the light of the world. When we try to overcome differences with understanding and solve conflicts with peaceful means, we are the light of the world. When we look for the good in other people and in ourselves, we are the light of the world. When we do not stay quiet in the face of prejudice, but speak our minds firmly and gently, we are the light of the world. When we fight despair within ourselves and side with hope, we are the light of the world. When we use our powers justly and in the service of love for humanity, we are the light of the world. We are the light of the world. May it be so. Now let us join together in singing hymn number 270. We are a gentle, angry people, and the lyrics are printed in the order of service that Regina sent out to you.
We are gentle, angry people, and we are singing for our lives. We are gentle, angry people. are singing, singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
Good morning. I want to welcome you and thank you for being in our congregation and to our service today. At least I do not feel like Father Mackenzie. I want to thank Joyce for that wonderful introduction, and also want to remind you that we also were basically able to form the community forum committee in Dunbar, but we did not make real good contact with the people of Dunbar. That is a difficult thing to do. The basis for our discussion today is justice, equity, and compassion, our second principle. I will also read the second source because I think it's good to remind ourselves. Words and deeds of prophetic people which challenges us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. Our congregation has been on the front line, making its light shine into the vast darkness this country and the world faces. Joyce outlined many of the things that we were doing. We also read and discussed white fragility and some others, but we will basically stick with that. This country was founded on the principles that all people are created equal. Yet, we attempted genocide of the indigenous people and confiscated their land. This country built its wealth on African slaves, denied women the right to vote, practiced identity politics with white males in power. Barriers were created to preserve the inequities which those in power refused to see or were not motivated to remove because they provided them an advantage. Race rose out of necessity to maintain an unjust slavery. Race is a social construct for which there is no scientific basis. Frederick Douglass, 1852, said, "America is false to the past, false to the present, and silently binds herself to be false in the future." Man, Homo sapien, our species, evolved out of Africa around the area of Morocco some 300,000 years ago. Man migrated and settled this planet. Neanderthal, the Cenobans, and others were part of an exodus from Africa some 60,000 years ago, Mutations, natural selections, and adaptations occurred which counts for the differences in our species. Skin color is just one of these differences. Different shades, different hair thickness, eye color, etc. were selective. European light skin resulted from a change in one amino acid. In addition, adaptations, skin darkness near the equator, lighter skin away from the equator near the poles, facilitated vitamin D manufacturing, which gave us strong bones and teeth. We heard a lot about light already today. I will talk a little about color. The problem of color, W.E.B. Du Bois, 1903. The problem of color of the 21st century is that color is a problem. We developed a caste system based on skin color. White, cultural dominance, Asian, Latino, African, or black in descending order of preference. This caste system is based on prejudice of the dominant culture. Prejudice is a burden which confuses the past, threatens the future, and renders the present inaccessible. Maya Angelou, 1986. Prejudice comes from being in the dark. Sunlight disinfects it. 1996, Muhammad Ali. White is a false identity, an identity of false superiority. Black is a false identity, an identity of false inferiority. Blackness provides the needed other against which white may rise. You should experience the pain of being the other. White identity depends upon the projection of inferiority into black and oppression, racism. The superiority-inferiority binary status justifies white collective privilege. Whiteness, like race and craniology, will not survive. Multiracial, biracial, likewise, any other synonym you want to use for it is also false. We must challenge the norms, structures, and institutions which keeps racism in place. Police, schools, healthcare system, government should be challenged. The socialization in this racist culture from birth to death must change. Institutional racism in this culture of color, where white is dominant, pervasive, black is demeaning, oppressed, undervalued, grossly punished to death. Of all the injuries inflicted by racism on people of color, the most corrosive is the wound within. Internalized racism that leads the victim at an unpredictable cost to their sense of self to embrace the values of the oppressor. Yes, there is one human race, no black, no white. Falsehoods established a color bar used for exploitation, white superiority. The grave injuries and injustice to those designated as inferior. We fought a war and ultimately declared slavery illegal and unacceptable. We proceeded to a declaration of integration. We took down the black and white signs to designate use, but that does not alleviate the emotions that occur or the scars that occur to those inflicted by the disease. In India, the government has changed the rules on products labeled fair and lovely, or skin whiteners. Recall the biblical story of Abraham. Light and lovely Sarah, Abraham, Hagar, Ishmael, Isaac, two seeds of Abraham. unfortunately, Beyonce in the Best Award acceptance speech dedicated to brothers and sisters fighting for change. Now we have one more thing we need to do to walk in our true power, and that is to vote. Unfortunately, that is not all. The fight for the right to vote was only a part and a start to the changes in the culture of this socialization that we need to change the disease of racism. Resocialization and creation of a society socialized with the intent of justice, equity, compassion. Just taking down statues, signs, changing names won't do it. We need the dominant culture to move into the light. We need to have courageous conversation. Racism should be on the table, not hidden. White people must accept their racism. Stop being defensive. Accept feedback. End white supremacy. Stop anti-blackness. People of color should stop being accommodating. They should share their pain. Interrupt white fragility. Without fear of being labeled a troublemaker or worrying about loss of jobs or worrying about punishments or etc. I will switch now to the current crisis of COVID-19. And I heard today about COVID-19 nursing homes. Minorities, people of color, and the elderly, immigrants, migrants, have suffered disproportionately in this crisis. As this pandemic raced across our nation, states and federal governments were slow to respond. But when the statistics started to come and be presented, there was no disputing this fact that more poor, people of color, elderly, etc., were dying disproportionately. Some workers on the front line held wildcat strikes against the problem, unsafe working conditions. Most on the front line were poor Americans, brown, black, and they were the hardest hit. Rumors spread that people of color could not contact the virus. When good information came out later, they were sick and lined up in the hospitals. Certainly, race, poverty, health disparities were well known and well documented before this problem hit. But also social and environmental factors also contributed to poor outcomes. Segregated neighborhoods, pollution, unsafe housing, limited access to health care, poor nutrition, poor economic opportunity. There is evidence also that systemic racism affects health in most subtle ways. Weathering, a term describing the way discrimination wears at the body, leading to early onset, chronic disease, and poor health outcomes. Then there is accelerated biological aging caused by chronic exposures to stressors and their high effect of coping with racism. Last year, some American cities took to calling racism a public health crisis. And I'll mention Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the city with the highest segregation in the nation, the city with the most incarcerated zip codes, and Wisconsin itself with the highest infant mortality of dark children. This country knows that these things are there and they are repetitive. As a nation, and I'll shift now to the next crisis that I want to mention, income inequality. As a nation, we have been faced with progressive income inequality. There has been little attempt to interrupt this process. What is the definition of poverty? For in America, a family of 4 living on less than $26,200 a year, or minimum wage of less than $7.25 an hour, which has not changed since 2009. Since 1962, more than 25% of American households have been living in poverty. 40% of American wage earners earn less than $15 an hour. 15% earn less than the minimum wage. Programs to reduce poverty, for example, earned income tax credit, child tax credit, did not move many out of poverty. 1 in 3 children did not receive full benefit because the parents did not earn enough to qualify. No, families cannot work themselves out of poverty. This unequal distribution of wealth is just too great. For example, over the last 4 decades, 1980 to 2019, the greatest share of wealth has gone to the richest. The share of wealth going to the richest 1% more than doubled. But the share of wealth going to the bottom 90% barely rose. The richest 0.1% of American households' share of wealth increased from 10 to 20%, doubled. The bottom 50% household owns less than 1.3% share of this nation's wealth. Childhood poverty is especially a national tragedy because it causes cognitive and emotional damage to children. Poor kids are less healthy than the rest. Poor kids drop out of school at a higher rate. Poor kids earn less money over a lifetime. Poor kids are more often incarcerated. Yes, poor kids have more problems, worse outcomes, because they are poor, not just because the family is impoverished. Tonight, 1 in 5 children in Lee County will go to bed hungry. And there was an article on that in the paper today. Maybe more with the pandemic upon us. Yes, that is a problem which government and we have to see that we solve the problems. I will close with this final statement. There is never time in the future which we will work out our salvation. The challenge is in the moment. The time is now. James Baldwin, 1961. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Louis. This was a wonderful presentation. Just recently, many of us shared in the loss of Representative John Lewis, and I was very moved by his final words. And one thing that characterized John was he always said, if you see injustice, say something, do something, and go out and get in some good trouble. So thank you for your message today. We have a lot of work to do, and we can't just sit back and let things go on as they are. The time is now, and we must take action. Today, our offertory is, we're going to be sharing the plate with Operation Joy, as I've mentioned. You can send your checks into Allface at 2756 McGregor Boulevard, Fort Myers, Florida. And you can also go to our website and contribute there. And if you want your check to go to Operation Joy, please write Op Joy on the lower left corner. And now we'll have some music.
always keep them on a leash.
Thank you, Joseph. Beautiful. Our closing words are by Frederick Gillis. May the love which overcomes all differences, which heals all wounds, which puts to flight all fears, which reconciles all who are separated, be in us and among us, now and always.
I'll be your candle on the water. My love for you will always burn. I know you're lost and drifting, but the clouds are lifting. Don't give up, you have somewhere to turn. I'll be your candle on the water, till every wave is warm and bright. My soul is there beside you. Let this candle guide you. Soon you'll see a golden stream of light. A cold and friendless tide has found you. Don't let the stormy darkness pull you down. I'll paint a ray of hope around you, circling in the air, lighted by a prayer. I'll be your candle on the water. This flame inside of me will grow. Keep holding on, you'll make it. Here's my hand, so take it. Look for me, reaching out to show, as sure as rivers flow. I'll never let you go. I'll never let you go. I'll never let you go.
We want to thank Dr. Lewis Robinson for his very inspiring and informative message today, and Joseph for the beautiful music, and Ed Alrod, it's good to have you back on sound after your surgery, and Regina for organizing everything and keeping us all informed. I just want to say an appreciation for the last 5 months. Regina Kilmartin has been holding things together for us. So let's have an appreciation for all that she does to keep us all connected through these troubled times. And now we will extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world.